Wonderful.
In a world that's constantly demanding for more and
Yeah.
more productivity, more engagement, more hustle, what if the key to becoming stronger isn't about adding another thing to do your to-do list, but about strategically picking the things that you have to move away?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Growth Hacking Culture Podcast, the show where we explore the systems, mindsets, and strategies to build better cultures. Today, we're hacking our most critical piece of personal infrastructure, our own resilience. We are not just talking about bouncing back from failure. We are talking about building a robust internal operating system that allows us to thrive under pressure, innovate through uncertainty, and lead with clarity. To guide us, we have the perfect expert. Dr. Ute Liersch is a psychologist and the celebrated author of the book, A Minimalist Guide to Becoming Resilient. She combines neuroscience with practical minimalist strategies to help us build strength without the overwhelm. In today's conversation, we are going to be covering with Dr. Liersch about how to pull back the curtain on the science of a resilient brain. We are going to talk about everything from the amygdala to the neuroplasticity. She will give us some proactive habits to build strength before crisis hits. And she will share the absolute smallest first step you can take if you're feeling overwhelmed right now. We even dive into the surprising and important concept of toxic resilience and how to avoid it. This is going to be a masterclass in mental fortitude, framed for the modern leader, innovator, and creator. So get ready to declutter your mind and build lasting strength. Dr. Liersch, a very welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Ivan, thank you for having me. It is such a pleasure. It is honestly such an honor and a pleasure to talk to you.
Listen, one of the reasons why I was craving to spend some time with you is because of your book.
Yeah.
I love the title already, and I find it quite intriguing, A Minimalist Guide to Becoming Resilient. And we often think of resilience as something complex and hard won, that you need like a lot of efforts.
Right.
I wanted to understand what was the inspiration behind to connect with the philosophy of minimalism that you had when you wrote the book.
Yeah. I think minimalism, the way it is presented and used in the book, is not a philosophy I am using as an external source in order to write something. But the minimalism, together with Stoicism, and allow me to throw another word in, with this, the science of Buddhism there have become guidelines in my life. And the reason why they are there is because minimalism is really allowing me to focus back on the essentials, to come away from the loud and the noise in order to actually hear the things that need to be heard, in order to say the things succinctly that have to be said, and to endure, but also give the pauses that other people need in order to work through the things that I am presenting and giving.
Okay, but isn't it a little bit difficult in a world where we think that winning, being successful, it means money, the little car, the traveling around the world in expensive places, giving the children things that maybe they don't need, these expensive schools where we believe they're going to give them an edge to be successful. And I have the impression that everything is rooted towards the definition of happiness, and nobody has the time to define what is going to make us happiness. So, and you're asking them, yeah, remove things. Isn't it a little bit too difficult in today's world?
It's very difficult. I see this when I work with clients. So maybe allow me to explain. I work with two groups of clients. I work with clients who have mental health challenges, difficulties, and then I'm working with people who are leading, either companies, or they're leading their family business that is given from generation to generation, and who want to be actually aligned with themselves. And most people come with that sentence when I ask them what they want. They say, I want to be happy. Now, my standard sentence, and it really is a standard sentence, is to be very transparent. Firstly, happiness is overrated. And I've got two words I don't do in therapy. One is happiness and the other one is hope. Because both put us astray. They take us to places which are very often connected with sales targets, with you need to have this in order to feel like that. They are not connected any longer with our own breath, with our own alignment, with our own centering in the here and now. Regardless whether a person I'm working with is what we would call incredibly affluent, or whether whether a person I work with is really on the most lowest level, the words change. The approach to happiness quite often doesn't.
Huh. Now, when you're talking about happiness is overrated, is it happiness that is overrated, or is what we do in order to the expectations that we have in life? Voila, that's just the thing that I wanted to go. So that our definition of happiness is related to the expectations. When I work hard, I'm going to have this promotion. When I find the right person, I'm going to be so happy because this person is going to love me to death, and then all the stuff. When I get my first million in the bank, I'm going to be happy because I wouldn't have to worry about the future. So is it expectations or is it happiness that is overrated?
I think we need to understand what people mean with happiness, right? Just because we are using the same word doesn't mean we are talking about the same thing, right? Nietzsche said, of course, so beautifully, that our language is nothing else but a metaphorical use of something. So when I work with groups, one of the first exercises I do, I ask people to draw a tree. And, you know, if all of your listeners and you and I could sit together in a big room, I would ask them to draw a tree. It's a very simple noun. And I promise you one thing, whether we are 5, 50, 500, 5,000, 5 million people, it doesn't matter. We would not have twice the same tree. So something that is so fundamentally easy as a tree has already a different understanding in the brains of people, because we all grew up in different areas in our lives. So trees are different. And this is a very simple experience, a tree. Now let's come to happiness. Happiness is complex. And even more in a world where we start to believe that we have a right to be happy, that happiness is a good emotion, whereas sadness is a bad emotion, where psychology has started to divide emotions into positive and negative, which I think is an atrocity. It's just wrong. We have emotions that we welcome more, that are more comfortable, of course. Right? Joy is much more comfortable than grief. But grief is the translation of love. So if we kick out grief, do you want to stop loving? So when I speak of where do you actually want to go, and when resilience becomes a part of us living life deeply connected to our reality, deeply connected to what is within our control, deeply connected what is not in our control, then we start to align with how we are in the present moment. Not who. I don't work with a who. I have stopped talking about the who, because for me, the who is not really existent. I need to understand this. How do you want to live life? What's the function of it? And how can I, as the person I am, and how can resilience as a skill help you to not only go where you want to go, but deeply honor who you are today and fully respect how you have been yesterday. Because without this trinity, you're going to be in war with yourself forever.
This little sentence that you just mentioned, emotions are neither negative or positive,
Yes.
resonates so much. We don't hear it that often, but
No.
it's totally true. I'm totally with you. It is not the emotions that we have to qualify, but it's more about the reactions that we take out of these emotions. These emotions may be, I mean, there is a trigger who can be external, then we feel something, and we have one moment a choice, right, to how to express it. And this is more a behavior. Maybe the behavior can be negative or harm us or be something healthy for us, but the emotion itself is nothing if we know how to prioritize it or how to not define it, but how to prioritize if we want or not to have a behavior out of that emotion.
Allow me to work with maybe two emotions as an example. So, and these are two emotions which are commonly put in the negative box. Again, I'm saying commonly because for me, they are not in the negative box. They are in the more difficult to bear box. So one of the emotions is anger. We are not allowed to be angry, right? And I ask people, what's the function of anger? Tell me why Mother Nature has bestowed anger on humans. And then most people have no idea. But the reason for anger is a subjective understanding of that what we experience being neither just nor fair. Of course, the key word, the working word for my clients and me is within the subjective. But allow me just to say that, but move on. So we need to have an experience of unjust and unfair, which has an emotional data point of anger. Emotions are data points. That's it, full stop. Like our rational self, our emotional self gives us an understanding how we are situated in the here and now in the world. So without anger, I do not have the emotional data point of something is going wrong, which is not correct within a way of right or justice, or let me blow it up, morals and ethics. So I propose the following. Gandhi wouldn't have existed without anger. Now, anger is fundamentally different to aggression. I want to be very clear. But anger is something that can help us to initiate change if and when used appropriately. But in order to use it appropriately, I have to come to a point where I say, I do not fear that thing any longer. I do not negate it. I do not suppress it. I'm using the word aligned again. I'm fully aligned with the experience and I allow myself to work with it. And that is, in its deeper sense, the skill training of resilience.
You mentioned before that resilience is a skill. And when I think about the skill, I think about practice, something that you do regularly so that it becomes something that you completely acquire and becomes kind of your wisdom, there was a word, but I have missed that word. So you need to practice this. And in the context of being minimalistic, I guess that you need to prioritize certain things. You don't have to deal only with the consequences of the symptoms of being overwhelmed, but you need to be able to pick things that are right so that you don't have more problems with your overwhelm. How do you?
So allow me to come into that answer with sharing what resilience actually is, rather than going on the assumptions what people tell me how they live it, right? Because resilience quite often is displayed as this demolition derby, right? I have to take every hit and I have to stay strong. Or the English say keep calm and carry on. The Germans say what doesn't kill us makes us harder. I guess the Swiss do the same. And I'm pretty sure, I hope everyone forgives my ignorance, I only know these two sayings, but I'm pretty sure every listener has something like that in their culture. So that's the understanding of a demolition derby, right? I have to take a hit. I have to just shake it off, just listen to my language and move on. Of course, that's utter nonsense, because a demolition derby is a car that drives in circles. It doesn't go anywhere. Interesting, right? It just drives in circles until it has so many hits that it breaks down. And I ask people, is this how you want to live your life? Do you want to drive around in circle, getting hit by whatever? And the only thing you are focusing in with all your strength, with all then your suppressing and avoidance stuff, right? Buy a little bit more, have a bit more drugs, do a bit more sex, earn a bit more, get more of this, right? Some allow me to say, as older I am, as younger my partner needs to be, and whatever. Is this because you want to put a plaster over the freaking hit you're getting? But at the end of the day, all you do is you drive in circles. Look, it's your life. If this is your decision, do it. But then don't work with me, because that's not what I do. Resilience in its purest form comes from material science. And what material science does, it clamps a sheath of metal between two hands. And they apply stress. And the stress must be so strong that the sheath of metal starts to yield. Not break, yield. And then resilience of the metal is measured by it bouncing back to this original form. So now what does this teach us? In order to have a resilience skill, life needs to offer you so much stress and pressure that you have to yield. If you do not yield, you cannot learn resilience. And you can only yield if you are coming into a situation where the pressure is too much that you can stay the way you are. So yielding, which other people say giving up, which is not giving up, is fundamentally different. Bowing to and under pressure is fundamentally one of the first steps you need to take in order to learn resilience. And once we go there, do you notice that I'm taking it into the smallest unit now? The person who comes and says, I can't any longer, then I can say, are we going to yield or are we going to break? Because what is taught is this concrete stuff. I have this in the first chapter of the book, just redefines, purely, simply redefines what resilience truly is. If you are concrete is beautiful. Look, I love driving a car. We need concrete. But when it's too much, it breaks. What bamboo does, it yields. And when we want to become resilient, we need to understand that we have to yield before we break. And this is not in the big. I have yet to meet people, regardless which social economic status they are having, that they can walk out of their job. That is nonsense. That's TikTok crap. You can't just throw stuff in. We have responsibility. People have families. We need to function. So we can't go out on the big bang, right? That may be possible for people who rule the world, that they don't give a shit. But the father or the mother who takes care of the kids, the people I meet, they care. So we have to start in the small. And the small is to understand, wow, it's difficult for me and I don't know what to do.
I like this, the analogy that you have given with yielding. Made me, now I understand finally when you mentioned the fact that certain of your philosophy is rooted in Buddhism. So the possibility to let go, there is a little bit of pain, but that's something that is necessary in order for you to bounce back. Now, I have the case.
Yeah.
I would love to understand, because And this is something kind of personal because I believe that I have been in that situation myself. I having these beliefs that I invest this amount of money from this stupid company that I'm working for, and that is making me feel pain every single day, but I need this amount of money.
Yeah.
And it was a wrong belief. Now, with the time, I believe that it was stupid that I needed that amount of money. I need money to survive. I need a certain amount of money, but not that amount of money in order to be slapped around like a bitch in that awful toxic environment. So when is it too much the yielding? When do we know that there is our level of resistance, we are close to the breaking?
Yeah. I think there are, and this is why I work very much in the book with the body. So I'm a very body-based person, because our body has a voice. I mean, we are incredibly good with not listening to our bodies any longer. But when you come consistently home, and the first thing you do is you sit down and you don't even notice that you stare, and you stare because you're too depleted to pick up the blanket, even though you're freezing. That tells you something. When people come and say, you know what, I just feel heavy, then we need to pause. And we need to be silent for a moment and to understand, what does this heaviness actually tell us? And look, I'm in no shape or form come from a minimalistic background. When I did my doctorate, whilst I did my doctorate, I trained in 36 therapies outside therapies that I trained in the doctorate, because I thought I need all of them. Did I? I don't know. What I do know is, as more as we throw in, as less present we are. And we need to be present. And if I'm, as the person who gives you counsel, is not present with you, I can't model that to you. And if I can't model that to you, you as the person who comes to me for counsel, you can't learn. And learning is not cognitive purely. It's modeling also through the body. So I'm sitting with people in the room, and I do things like, where is your breath? And people say, well, my breath is here. And I know I'm doing mindfulness because I've got the app downloaded, and I'm sitting every day 5 minutes, and I do blah, 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 blah. And I say what I've just said. I said, how often have you told this story? And they look at me aghast, because it's quite, you could say it's rude. I say, because how quickly you tell the story tells me that it's a very well rehearsed narrative. I'm not interested in that. I'm asking you, where is your breath? And it's nowhere where they think it is. So when I do breathing exercises with people, look, if I would get the same amount of money Bayer gets for their antidepressants when I do proper breathing exercises, trust me, we would have big charity organizations. But don't understand that what is not necessarily afflicted with a high price is profoundly important for their life. I sit with patients, and of course I ask them whether I can touch them, and I hold my hand to their belly, and I say, all I want you to do is you breathe into my hand, so my hand is moved by your breath. That's a profound experience of deep connection with yourself and the other person who witnesses your breath. That's a minimalistic approach. Doesn't need a freaking app. It doesn't need a 500 yoga mat or 50,000 gurus. It's what we have.
I have the impression that we have reached the point where most of us have live in the day-to-day, and we don't have just the small little time to connect with our body, because as you said, and I want to open a parenthesis here, because there is a lot of misunderstanding, and it happened to me to don't believe that that you call it mindfulness or you call it breathing exercises, that these could help you, because it looks like the first time that you hear it, it looks like, yeah, this is something that hippies have invented, like a little bit like chakras, which I still don't believe, by the way, the chakra story. But anyways, mindfulness or breathing exercises, it is something that is proved by science, where there has been enough neuroscience today that is accessible to anyone, really, like anyone, because I'm not an expert on the matter, to understand what it could bring to people in order to connect and to feel better what is happening with your body, in order to know that if you are at the breaking point or you are still in the bending or yielding state. So I think that there is a lot of things that we don't make the time. It's not that we don't have the time, because breathing exercise is 2 minutes. When I started doing it, it was 2 minutes. Now it's a little bit more often, but it was back then 2 minutes. And that brings me to my next question, which is about our capacity to learn. And in psychology, you call it the neuroplasticity, that our brain at any age can adapt to have a new perception of the world or to learn new skills. We require reconnect, because learning is about different connections in different parts of our brain. Is in reality what most of the people don't know is that today we are using just a small little portion of our brain for cognitive actions, and we don't use enough. So how important is this concept of neuroplasticity in the approach that you take in your book?
Yeah.
Is it
So
necessary to understand it, in fact?
I think, again, so this idea of minimalism for me was, I give you enough data and well-researched evidence-based data that you can trust what I'm saying. I'm not overloading you with data that you're getting bored. So the one of the reasons why the book has the word minimalist in there, it is a book that is done within 25,000 words, which is short, right? And the reason why I say that is, now we are coming to the brain. When you are already in stress, we know that our ability to hold a cognitive load is, of course, reduced. So when you are in stress, when you are yielding, when you are close to breaking point, you're not going to have a freaking time or actually the ability to hold and retain, understand, transform new data. You don't, because you're already done. And therefore, I've written something which gives you always pointers. Of course, there you can get more information. But at the end of the day, it is a very precise, very holding guide that takes you to a place where you are safe again. Because as you say, if we don't yield and we break, that is dangerous. Of course, we can heal after breaking, don't get me wrong. But a break is a break, and a yield is something fundamentally different. So neuroplasticity is in the book not presented as, look, this is the research data on it, and this is what the amygdala does, because we know now that we probably are able to build new neurons within the amygdala, which is something fundamentally different to the 70s. Or I talk about, that the synapses are probably growing, so we have a higher amount of synaptic connections, or that myelination is increasing so that the electrical impulse is faster. All of that stuff I left out. But what I do say is, look, if you are consistently thinking the same thing, think about your brain as the data highway. We use every part of our brain, and these are data highways. And like any other highway on the planet, if you drive one much more often, it becomes a very well-used highway. So when you are toggling out in the morning out of bed and you're not really thinking clearly any longer, that's the highway you go automatically on, even if you wanted to go on a different one. So that is a very well concept, neurons that fire together, wire together. So what this means is thinking which is behavior, different types of behavior in which we are well rehearsed, well conditioned in. We just do them much more automatically. That's the automatic pilot. Now, when you notice the automatic pilot doesn't work any longer, you got to do something different. But there is no highway. There is not even a road or a path. There might be an inkling of a jungle, and you need a machete to build something which you can start walking. And that's uncomfortable. But this is where our beautiful research on neuroplasticity gives us the biological evidence data that we are able to do that. Is it easy? No. But who told you life is easy? Are you going to so-called fail, which means I'm just not as good as using the M25, which is a very busy road, a very busy motorway in London? Of course, it's not as easy. That's not the point. The point is if how you have lived your life so far on autopilot has put you to a point close to breaking. It's your decision what you want to do with it. You want to carry on and break? Or are we going to take small, doable steps in service of healing, aligning where you want to be and how, not who, let's kick the who out again, how you want to live your life. And our brain facilitates that beautifully.
The concept of neuroplasticity might have certain limitations. I'm just thinking loud here. And if I say something horrible, please slap me back, because I'm not sure about what I'm going to...
I can't. You sit in Switzerland and I sit in London. I mean, not even I can do that.
Mentally, Ute, mentally. You can slap me mentally. The limitation is that we believe that we can use it, activate it at any time. But when we are in the already broken, like a burnout, you cannot, because you have completely destroyed the at that specific period. You have completely destroyed your ability to connect different parts of your brain, because you feel so much the pain, the suffering, you are overwhelmed. You feel like almost like you were 90, I would guess, in terms of cognition, of processing or deciding stuff when you are burnout, and it doesn't work anymore. You need time to recover. So there is a limitation at one moment of that we can learn something. If you are broken, you need time to recover. You cannot learn it for a couple of months at least.
Can I say yes and no to that?
Yes, please, because this is a big assumptions that I'm throwing out there.
I tell you why. When we are, as you say, broken, it's allow me to hold this very lightly. When we are broken, we might not be able, and I have met people who are not able to move. But I tell you what I need in order to change. I need the willingness to do so. And movement change is not necessarily always visible from the outside. Let me give you an example. When I work with people who have tremendous trauma, right? I've worked with survivors of torture. I worked with people with complex grief, who had horrendous death in their closest family. And what we do quite often, we draps around the topic, right? We're not touching that what hurts, because people have to heal. But just like a good surgeon, I would say, I need to go where it hurts, because otherwise I can't get the pus out. I don't need you to have this idea of, somebody's going to fix it, because that's the toxic hope. We need compassion, curiosity, and courage. These three things we need if we want to change. And the courage means I am willing to do something even though I have no idea how this is looking at the moment. All I know, I am in pain.
Mm.
And it's the curiosity, because to me, and that's, I fundamentally disagree with Carl Rogers, the godfather of client-centered therapy, so humanistic therapy, who says once we acknowledge or accept who we are, then we can change. I fundamentally disagree. We need to become aware how we are. Change starts in the courage and the curiosity of awareness. I see how I am. And from there on, we build. So in that lies neuroplasticity, because you are already changing the way you are thinking. By that, it's the change how you're perceiving and seeing life, the world around you, and you in it.
Wow. Ute, I wanted to understand also something. Is there people who are more sensitive to the outside pressure? And I'm thinking about either minorities, let's say I was born brown, I was born a woman, I was born a neurodivergent. Is it more difficult for them to build resilience because we are more sensitive about certain things, and we can break maybe easier, and the way of building this resilience, it might take either longer or being more painful or whatever.
So I'm keeping away this nature nurture debate here, simply because it's neither either or, right? And I also want to keep out people who are I want to keep out the um, uh, narcissistic group of people, because that's a very different ballgame. Or conduct disorder in children, or what we commonly call the psychopath. Let's talk about those ones who run around the normal spectrum, or with one or two standard deviation around the mean of whatever normal means. If we think about people who are not mainstream, and allow me to use me and myself as an example, not because I'm so egocentric, but because I can disclose and I have full control over what I can disclose. Is that okay with you, Ivan?
That would be nice.
So I'm born in the 70s. I'm born into Bavaria, which is a very conservative country, very patriarchic. I'm clearly female. And I know today now that I'm pretty neurodivergent. So I have a diagnosis today of dyslexia, dyspraxia, and dyscalculia. And a good friend of mine who is a psychiatrist says you don't need an ADHD diagnosis because it's so blatantly obvious. So I was sorted out of higher education in the 4th grade at the age of 10 as being basically far too stupid to study. Because I can't spell for tuppence. My visual spatial awareness is non-existent. My memory is shite. I have very little understanding of organization. And I'm basically, for that, what was commonly seen as intelligent in the context I grew up, I was just weird, right? So what this took away from me is, of course, the belief that I am intelligent, and that the thoughts I am having, and that's even more profound, that the thoughts I am having are actually have a right to exist in this world. So I run through life for years believing that all I'm thinking is worth less. And today, I'm of course much older. I'm now a doctor in psychology. I've done this in another language. I'm quite well regarded in my profession. I've written a book, I do podcasts, I have an okay running YouTube channel where I explain difficult topic very simply. I quite successful, whatever that means, with patients who are deemed to be more difficult or complicated, whatever that means. But I'm still struggling with, is my thinking worthy of being on this planet? I'm probably the most anxious person you will ever leave in your life. I had bounces of depression. And that's not because I have a vulnerability. It's because how I am as a deep thinker and an incredibly important person to me. She's the CEO of the SOAK, is a clinic I am working for. She said to me something to me which still makes me cry. She said, "You are a philosopher." So for somebody who has been told too freaking stupid to study, to be told by somebody else, "I regard you as a philosopher," is so profoundly touching for me. I can't tell anyone. Have I become more vulnerable? Yes, because the world told me I am wrong, because I could not tick the boxes the world wanted me to tick. So the book you are seeing today is a profound private journey over 40 years of my life. Mm. And every single thing I offer, I've tested on myself, but with people who have done similar journeys.
The idea that I have captured here is that indeed it is more difficult, but it requires maybe a trigger on or understanding of what is your value. This convincing moment where you say, "I'm clever," or "I'm so super creative," or whatever is a belief that we are the chosen ones. Sorry for the bad joke. That is going to make us stand despite the difficulties. And I hope that I understood it correctly, because I feel it related to a little bit about certain beliefs that I had despite certain difficulties in my past. This belief that somebody was thinking about me, like my mother, thinking that I was so intelligent and whatsoever, and sometimes I wasn't believing that, and my results weren't proving that. That, in fact, that make us go build this resilience for the future. Ute, did I get it, or I'm completely off?
No, I think the word for me that captures this is faith. I have to have faith in myself. And with faith comes responsibility. So what I do, I may do right, I may do wrong, but I will take responsibility for all of it. But I do it. I own it. It's my decision. It's the choice I am doing or I am going for. But when you are growing up being told that you are wrong, you are running through the world, and I have met many people from very diverse backgrounds who are suffering from what I call the Dumbledore effect. You know, Dumbledore, Harry Potter.
Yes.
So we run around the world and we think everyone cracked how life works, but we are too freaking stupid to know how it works. And I've seen this in people who are neurodivergent. I've seen this in the transgender community. I've seen this in the colored community. Others know how to do life, but I am too stupid. So this idea of looking for somebody who gets it right, from whom we can learn, makes us also often very vulnerable for finding partners who are either narcissistic or psychopathic, right? There is another vulnerability, because they come across, of course, as the Dumbledores, but actually they are not, right? So are people who are not mainstream more vulnerable? I wouldn't say not because they are born differently, but because quite often the difference is negated, or the difference is presented as not good. And let me just be very clear. I've been lecturing for 6 years. I finished this year. And when people came to me and they said, I can't do this because I'm ADHD, I say, don't you dare say this to me. We are not using that. Are you going to work harder? Yes, I work freaking harder. Are you going to fail more? Probably yes. Are you going to be more on this? Yes, you will. But that's not the point. The point is to build and have faith that you can, not to find an excuse you can't. And that's again resilience.
The trade-off of going through the pain of being neurodivergent and being successful at being resilient is that you can do things that are even more extraordinary compared to the standard people.
So I would say I would agree with that in a sense of I think my brain is as follows. And again, allow me to say mine, not because of egocentricity, but because I disclose here, right? People who have a less neurodivergent brain, I think their thinking is, and this is not evidence-based on any scanning research. Just want to be very clear. It's a metaphor I'm offering here. Is, you know, when you go down a road and you have light, which is in a row. I think that's how people think who don't have a brain that's similar to mine. My brain is like when you go over a huge city like London, where it's just, it just lightens up everywhere. So the connection points I find are quite unique compared to many other people. But that comes with a trade-off, right? My understanding of danger is a lot less normal compared to other people. I understand danger a lot less. The vulnerability of having a lot of, I need a lot of stuff happening in order to satisfy my brain, which means I overwork really quickly. Yeah. But this also means it makes us much more amenable to drugs, makes us much more amenable to drinking. I mean, I see people, especially with ADHD, and that's again not based on research, that's based on clinical experience. So some people with ADHD, they go into something which is, it's not manic in the clinical sense, but it's kind of, you need a lot less sleep. You are super strong and change the world, right? And everything is brilliant. You are the best stand-up comedian. You walk into the room and the world is yours. Honestly, I've lived that. And in these times, you can drink alcohol, you can drink tons of, you don't notice it. And then within a moment, literally within a moment, all of that goes away. And then people say you are depressed. You're not depressed. You're just not on this heightened state any longer. And then you sniff a little bit on a glass of wine and you're already drunk. So you need to have a profound understanding of how you are in order to work the things that you have to an advantage. But here we come back to awareness and to the first step of resilience. Notice what's going on. You cannot become resilient if you don't notice.
For a listener who is feeling completely overwhelmed right now, what is the absolute smallest, most minimalist first step from your book that they could take today to begin building resilience? One small little step.
The reason why I'm pausing is because I have to repeat what I've said. When you are at a place where you are overwhelmed, you are probably have bought in that a demolition derby is the only way to live life. I need you to become courageous to notice what truly happens right now. Just because we are denying that we are getting hit does not change the reality of consistently being hit. And you need the courage to notice it's too much. Because from that understanding, what we can recruit is compassion. Compassion isn't moaning or sitting in pain and saying, oh, well, basically I'm fucked, that's it. Compassion means noticing what's going wrong and then asking, what is the smallest step I can do? And the smallest step might be to say, I am allowing myself to breathe. Breathing doesn't change how much you earn. I want to be very clear. But it may change how much you fear walking into a meeting. So the smallest and the first step is allow yourself to see what truly is, rather than buying in how you would like life to be.
When you were doing the research for your book, A Minimalist Guide to Becoming Resilient, did you have like a surprising moment, or was it already research that you had already seen and you just had to combine it, or you had to do new research in order to be focused on this approach of minimalism to build resilience?
I mean, the book was, the actual writing was really fast, I have to say. But the book is also built on a workshop I've been given and developing for the last 10 years. I think what surprised me most was a sentence. I'm still surprised that I wrote this sentence, which is quite funny. And the sentence is called, identity is not given, but created. And when I read this, I thought, and this came out of me grappling really deeply with this understanding of who are we? Because people come, of course, to me and say, I don't know who I am. And I've, for the last year, very often answered this question, why is the who so important? Is it not more important how you are living your life rather than who you think you are? Because, and here, of course, comes the little Buddhist training. I'm not a Buddhist myself, just want to be clear, but I'm fascinated by Buddhist teaching of the mind. So I've done a 3-year course on getting a bit of a better understanding of it. Because when we are really applying logic in a disciplined way, and this is where Stoicism comes in, right? Got to be disciplined. Then we come to a place that the who we are holding on to so desperately doesn't exist. So why do I want to consistently try to figure something out that is in flux all the time anyway, when life is not lived through the who, but through the how? Yeah. And I think this awareness has fundamentally shifted my work. And this arose in a much more succinct way of talking about it through that one sentence. Identity is not given, but created.
That's a nice sentence. I have to be sincere with this. This conversation is inspiring for me. It's almost like having, and I'm sorry to disregard you as a person, but I had the feeling that I was talking with two people at the same time. Some people that one I admire more than the other. The one is Gabor Mate. You made me think about Gabor Mate. That's, I don't know how, but it went into that direction. There was a little bit of Eckhart Tolle, a little bit, the bullshit side of Eckhart Tolle, you removed it. Thank you. It was wonderful to listen to you, Ute. And I feel a lot of connection with what you say, and you make it easy to understand the complexity of building resilience, which I believe is going to be one of the skills that most of the people are craving, but they don't know yet. They believe that it's something else, that they have to become good at something either technical or AI or a little bit leading with impact or whatsoever. That's not going to heal you.
It's not.
And thank you for the wonderful lesson. Ute, how can people reach you out to connect with you, ask you questions? Just and yeah, and finally read your book, in fact, because I think that the less than 200 pages is worthwhile. It's a good investment.
It's very short, out of clear reasons. The paperback is out Wednesday in a week, so on the 30th of June, 2025. The paperback is out. And look, if you put into your Google machine Dr. Ute London, there is no way not to find me.
That's right.
And I'll send you, if this is what you want, I'm very happy to send you the link to all of it, but also the link to what I call the masterclasses on YouTube. And there are 5 to 10 minutes videos that simply explain a couple of concepts in a different way. And people can leave comments or connect with me via that also. And
I will add to that your LinkedIn profile, because I think that that's a good also way to reach you out.
And you've got the Instagram probably also, which is dr_ute_.
I will put it too. Exactly. Ute, thank you very much for the wonderful time. It was really, really good for me. And I think it's going to be really good for a lot of listeners. Thank you, Ute. Have an excellent day.
You too. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone.